it was like I enjoyed building businesses. And so when I sold my firm, I was like, I'm going to help other people build businesses. And so since then, I've worked with about 450 professional business owners to do exactly that. And so, yes, I get a lot of satisfaction and dirt under my fingernails in digging in to where they have blinders on.
Hey, welcome to 10X Your Team with Cam and Otis. We're a father-son leadership podcast where we talk with other lifelong learners about making an impact and solving big problems. And technology again, and microphones that work and ones that work better than others. And I don't know.
And $200 ones that don't work at all.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't understand that, nor will I spend any time trying to understand that. I think that's just move forward with it, right?
Yep. That's all you got to do. That's not even above the pay grade, not my skill set, and I don't want it to be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's, you know what it reminds me of? That damn dryer. How many times have I taken apart that damn dryer and it's still squeaking? I mean, it makes me want to curse in the first minute of the show, which I'm not allowed to do.
No, you are not.
Because I have spent enough of my precious time that I should have paid some skilled dude to come out here and fix it the first time. But you know what? I'm probably going to take it apart again.
One more
time. And our guest, James Brown, joining us. James, you got any appliances in your house that you like to take apart just for shits and giggles?
I do.
It's gummit, I cussed.
Yep. All that talk. Go ahead, Jim.
You know, it's funny because I'm a recovering lawyer. So I retired in 2014 from actively practicing, and during 21 years, you know, I never worked on anything. I just hired other people to come fix it. And now since retirement, I'm starting to do that. And like my wife keeps saying, oh, look at you. You're handy now. You like can do these things. And so, yeah, I actually really enjoy that because it's a different mindset and skill level than like constantly working on legal problems or stuff like that. And it's, you know, it's almost therapeutic. To do hand stuff where I can get involved in fixing stuff like that. So the last one was our dishwasher.
And you fixed it?
Yes.
Well, hey, what you doing this afternoon? You want to come by and fix my dryer?
Come on, Dad, I got to share the lesson talking about fixing things, paying guys to come out and fix things. The Uncle Ben lesson from the farm. You pay them to come out and fix it, and you just sit there with a notepad, and they never come out and fix it again because you learn everything they know.
Oh, 100%.
That's right.
100%. That between that and YouTube University, I mean, in theory, we should be able to fix anything on our own now, right?
Yeah, in theory. But then the expert gets out there and you realize you're doing it wrong the whole time. Like, I mean, shoot, I'll tell the story of my washer. I take it apart, I'm doing all this. It's leaking. It's making all this noise, all this kind of stuff. I take it apart, put it back together, do the whole thing. Guy comes out here and goes, you know, you have half a weight. It's supposed to be a circle. You got a semicircle. And I went, well, that explains why it makes so much damn noise. And, you know, that's why you got experts.
You know, and mine mostly came out of a lesson I learned in a mastermind group years ago about the time value of my money, the time value, right? And they were like, okay, you cut your own grass. How long does it take you to do that? And I'm like, well, it takes about 3 hours to do this 5 acres. And they're like, how much do you bill an hour? And I said, $4.50 an hour. I said, how much would you pay a kid to cut your grass? I said, maybe $25, $50. Then why are you doing it?
Yep,
right?
Exactly.
So that's why I use that as an excuse as to why I didn't want to do any of that stuff.
Yeah, I did the same thing years ago when I started my consulting business. Same principle. It's just that, you know, there's a bit of, and we're all guys here. There's a bit of pride, right?
There is.
You know, And like you said earlier, maybe it is a little bit of therapy. There we
Yep.
go. A little bit of therapy, getting a little dirt underneath your fingernails.
I think it is.
And back to the, retiring from practicing law.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get that same sort of feeling when you're helping your clients with their business growth? And is it kind of a figurative dirt underneath the fingernails?
I do. And I think that a long time ago, I realized that, we're all here to help other people, right? One way or the other. And at the time I started my law practice, I came right off of working for General Motors. I was on the assembly line for 11 years. We built 512 cars a day, right? And then I went to school at night. And during that time, I saw layoffs in the auto industry, all of that. And I saw a lot of bad things happen to good people through no fault of their own. And so it's why I started a consumer bankruptcy firm, was to help level that playing field between a consumer and this credit industry that's stacked against you. And so, when we first started, it was like, okay, we were helping like 2 or 3 clients a week. And then all of a sudden I figured out the marketing angle and how to get people to take action. And the first week I ran these new marketing messages, we signed 68 clients that week.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, that's what I said. It almost made me cuss on this show.
Yeah. We're in the safe spot for cussing, by the way. That's the first 2 minutes. Let it fly. You two don't care.
And then the second week was 72, and the third week was 63. And I'm like, oh, my goodness. I'm looking at my wife going, what are we going to do? Right? So we had to quickly develop systems. And along this process, it wasn't smooth, right? It was far from it. But I learned that all businesses have the same 7 working parts, right? And the only thing that's really different is what we sell. I sold legal services. You sold consulting services. Somebody else sells dental services. But the other 7 parts are the same, and that's marketing, sales, your factory to produce what it is you sold, the people to run the factory, your physical plant, which could be virtual or brick and mortar. Then you got your money and metrics, so you're making all your decisions and your KPIs and your financials based on data. And the last part of the business is you, the owner. And that's really the one people struggle with the most. But when I saw that, and I'm like, wait, all these businesses have the same, it was like I enjoyed building businesses. And so when I sold my firm, I was like, I'm going to help other people build businesses. And so since then, I've worked with about 450 professional business owners to do exactly that. And so, yes, I get a lot of satisfaction and dirt under my fingernails in digging in to where they have blinders on.
Talking about those blinders, I'd love to drill in. You mentioned that the leaders are the thing that businesses struggle with the most,
Yes.
that factor. Could you talk some about what those blind spots are, what that looks like from the leader perspective?
Yeah, and one of the things I found a commonality amongst business owners is we're great technicians, right? Sometimes I worked in, let's say, the HVAC industry, and I was a great technician, and then I had a brain fart one day that I can just start my own business and I can do this on my own. Right. And same thing with lawyers, same thing with doctors, same thing with anybody is you're really good at the technical part of what you do. And then you have this, I want to go start my own place, but you don't know how to manage people. You don't know how to market yourself. You don't know how to run the business and look at the numbers and make sure that we're running it in a profitable way. So what ends up happening for most people is you have a 70 to 80 hour a week job. And that's being conservative. Most of the time it's 24/7, right? And you're building this business around you and you can't escape from it. And to me, that's the total opposite reason why I wanted to build a business. For me, it was buying my time back. So I wanted to build the systems out and the people to run the systems so that I didn't have to be there, right? I could choose to be there, but I didn't have to be, which allowed me to we did a lot of volunteer work with the American Red Cross, And, when there's a hurricane that comes, they'll call you and say, hey, can you go to Florida? Yes. All right. Well, then you have to leave within 24 hours. And it's literally like a military deployment. And, you're calling a special phone number to get flights booked and hotels booked. And all of a sudden, thousands of volunteers are coming into this area. And you're gone for 30, 35 days at a time with little contact back, because if a major hurricane comes through, there's no electric, there's no phone signals, there's no anything. So my business has to be able to operate whether I'm there or not. And so being a great technician, a lot of people don't know how to manage others and be a leader, right? I had one guy, I actually got on the phone with him. It was a lawyer. He was a personal injury lawyer. And he was frustrated as soon as he got on the call. And I'm like, what's going on? He goes, well, I put these 6 files on my paralegal's desk to get this work done. And when I came in this morning, they were back on my desk and it said, I don't have time. And I'm like, okay, so what did you do? He goes, oh, I'm working on them. Right? Because he has a very big fear of confronting somebody or setting those expectations and holding them accountable to it. And so he takes it back on himself. Well, then that's what turns into the 70, 80 hour plus weeks, because they're afraid to manage somebody. I literally just got off a call with 2 partners, and there's one employee that is not doing what they need to do. And so the answer for the partner is, I just do it myself. And I'm like, have you had a conversation with her? And she said no. And I'm like, why not? Because she'll cry.
Yep.
And I'm sitting there thinking, who the F cares? Right? I'm not a dictator, right? I don't take a dictator approach to leadership, but I also have a business to run, and I've got 20 other families, kind of relying on me for this business to keep growing, and so they have job security. And so there's this outright fear that I see in a lot of business owners when it comes to managing people, and being that true leader. They gave me another example today. They said, well, she'll have this clear expectation of what to do. And then she sends me a question, where do I find this? And I'm like, okay, how do you respond to that? Well, then I tell her where to find it. I'm like, why do you do that? Right. One of the things I always did was hired people, and I told them right up front in the interview that I'm looking to fill all my roles with problem solvers, not problem makers. If you're a problem maker for me, I might as well do it myself. So what's going to happen is my door is always open, right? But when you come in with a question, be prepared that the first thing I'm going to ask you is, how would you handle that? And it's not a rhetorical question. So I want you to think about it before you come in. And I want you to come in and say, hey, I have this issue. Here's how I would propose we handle it. And by doing that, it created this culture amongst all the staff that their input was valued, right? And they could come in with anything, but then they would put their heads to it and not just rely on me for an answer. And that started developing those people that when I did go on a Red Cross deployment, they weren't reliant on me like to have to be there to solve those problems. And so it developed that to me, that was one way that I found to really develop as a leader, was developing those people under me by empowering them to be problem solvers.
Oh yeah, that's one of the things that we talk about here at Tribe and Purpose, also in our leadership program. What was the origin? Because most lawyers, and I've had this conversation, I had it with a therapist the other night. They want to do therapy. Most lawyers want to do cases, right? They don't want to run the business. How'd you kind of make that bridge or shift, however you want to put it? How'd you do that?
Yeah. I think early on I figured out that I couldn't care less whether I did the legal work.
There it is. Okay.
Right. So when we talk about like if let's say the lawyer is part technician, part manager, part entrepreneur. Most lawyers that start their own firm will be 90% technician. And so they're the ones who are stuck in production. I would just rather do this myself, right? So we have to kind of talk to them about what is the highest and best use of your time. The lowest and worst use of your time is actually doing the work. Do you want to build a business and scale it, or do you want to be the grinder? If you want to be a grinder, go work for somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go
right?
be a corporate lawyer.
Yeah, do the work.
That was, he made that conscious choice. He's like, I don't want to have a firm. I want a check.
and I've had people tell me, well, okay, if I hire people to do all the work, then I feel like I'm not a lawyer. I'm not doing the legal work. I'm not doing any of that. So then I said, it doesn't necessarily follow that you can't do any of it. What it allows you to do is pick and choose which ones you want to do. What do you want to work on? On a bankruptcy case, for example, it's pushing paper. I couldn't care less if I ever did one. But about 5% of the time, there would be what's called an adversary proceeding filed in the bankruptcy case. And it's where a creditor's claiming fraud. So they have to sue the debtor inside the bankruptcy. And now you got like a full-blown trial. You got evidence, you're doing discovery. I chose to do those, right? Because that interested me the most. But I tell them, it gives you the flexibility when you're the owner, when you have people around you that do those things better than you can. Now it gives you the luxury of being able to choose what you want to do.
Mm-hmm. There's a piece with that actually ties back to something I was thinking about earlier, talking about choosing what you want to do, working the area that you enjoy, you're following your genius, all those kind of things there. We asked you earlier, James, about, does your time as a lawyer and then the business development of it, like getting the dirt on the fingernails, as I think you put it, Dad. There's this interesting thing of there's something about those things that we really enjoy. And there's always you can replicate to some extent, but there's not necessarily. Like, I'm sure that you could think about times of being in the courtroom and it's like, okay, hey, there's nothing in business that quite hits that. I think about this all the time coaching rugby. It's like, yeah, do I love coaching? Is it competition, all that? Yeah, but it's like on game days, I'm like, I want to hit somebody. I still want to fight. Like there's still, it doesn't scratch that itch quite. Could you give some perspective on that process for you of finding what the thing was that you really wanted to spend the time doing? Because I think it can be a little misleading sometimes. So it's like, hey, I love this thing, or it's like, oh, or do you really just love the people that you're around when you're doing it? Do you really like that aspect of it? How do you tease out those different aspects of what you really enjoyed with the process?
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing for me personally was being able to develop those people under you. Right? To actually do it better than you do. And so spending my time and investing my knowledge in other people to really watch them have that aha moment. And then all of a sudden their whole world changes. That is what I enjoyed the most. Now, if I equate that to when I was actually handling bankruptcy cases, it's the same kind of feeling, because I would have somebody come in that is just overwhelmed with debt and they don't even know how they're going to put food on the table. And then they have a consultation with me and you can literally feel the weight lifted off their shoulders. And they're like, thank you, Lord, right? They're like shaking your hand and holding you and hugging you. And it's like, they didn't know they had these options, that these things were possible. And I find working with business owners, it's the same thing. They don't know what they don't know. And so I get that same rush, if you will, when somebody has that aha moment. That same partners that I was talking to right before this, she started talking to me about another company called her, and the guy was trying to sell her an intake, a sales conversation, and she said, okay, fine, I'll do that. And then this lady came, and she was talking about this whole process and how by the time they got the price, she was like, oh my God, I don't care how much it is, I want to do this. And I'm like, you realize I've been trying to drill that into your head for 2 years. And she's like, yeah, I know. Right. And she now today had that aha moment about that, to where really a sale is just an exchange of value. And if we're not bringing enough value, then people are going to haggle over the price. And so she had that aha moment, and I'm like, it gave me that adrenaline rush for her, because I know for a fact that now her business is going to have a quantum leap.
Yeah, she made that. Well, I'm flip flopping around on where to run on that, but I just got to say that's one of the things that I love about coaching and mentoring people. Also, is when they get that, you can auditorily hear it over the phone. That
You hear the light bulb. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You can hear the switch flip, and they go, oh, and that's that is very fulfilling, isn't it?
It is. It is. And sometimes when we talk about the you part of the business, it's usually the owner's mindset. I had this other business owner who every year she kept hitting 930,000, 970,000, 950,000. And every year her goal was like 3 million. And I'm like, what is the deal? Right? You got plenty of business coming in. Why aren't we hitting past $1 million? And she couldn't give me an answer. And I started digging in. I go, let me ask you this. What was your childhood like growing up? And she said, I go, did you have siblings? She said, yes. I said, how many? She said, 4. I said, were you the oldest, youngest, in the middle? She said, I was the oldest. I'm like, okay, what does all your siblings do now for a living? And she said, they're blue collar. They make 20, 25 bucks an hour. And I'm like, okay, let me ask you this. What do you think they would think of you if you were a millionaire? And she had that moment you just described.
Yeah.
She just was like, oh, I think you may be onto something. And she goes, I think they would think I was different. I was uppity. I was okay. So let me ask you this. If you did make over $1 million, how would you actually be? She goes, I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah.
The next year she did 1.8. Right? It was such a mindset block for her that she didn't even know was happening. But she had that moment where it's like, oh, right? That's holding me back. And then she broke through it.
Ironic how our subconscious, I mean, I talk about our subconscious all the time about, solving problems, seeing indicators and things like that. But I'd always talk about it in the positive sense, but in that negative sense, in that belief, in that, well, damn, I can't do that. I shouldn't do that. And how it can hold us back. It's actually scary.
Yeah.
And that's one of the great reasons to hire somebody like you to come in and do the kind of poke you a little bit, right?
Yeah. One of the things I learned was that your subconscious mind is actually formed before you're 7 years old. And so as a kid, I'll share my own experience here, is that my mom was from Germany. She was born in Germany during World War II. My dad was born in the U.S., but I grew up with the German genes. I was the fat kid, right? My brother wasn't. He got my dad's U.S. genes. And so my brother played baseball. I wanted to play baseball, and I was told, nope, you're too heavy, right? He played basketball. I wanted to play basketball. Nope, you're too overweight. And this was coming from my parents.
Wow.
Right? Then I said, okay, can I play Little League football? And they're like, okay, yeah, you can do that. And then I never made it on the field. Right? I just watched. So they didn't say anything at the time, but then fast forward to when I was in junior high, and I said, I want to try out for the football team. And they're like, why? You never made it on the field. And so to this day, I'm 60 years old, and I still struggle with I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough to do that. I'm too overweight. I can't do that. It's literally why I have perseverance tattooed on my arm, because it's like, screw that, shut the stories off in your head and just do it. But that's an example of subconscious mind that was developed early on. And that can affect people's leadership styles too.
Oh, yeah.
There's a piece of this that connects to it. I guess it's a little bit different, but I wanted to drill into, which is helping people to make these changes is always the interesting thing of like you said, James, of like, I've been saying this for 2 years and it just now clicked for her. Like there's those type of things all the time. The amount of times I've seen it like in rugby coaching of like drilling something for years and then some other coach walks in and is like, hey James, did you ever think you could do it like this? And I'm like, I've been saying that for 4 freaking years. James never listened. Like it's such a funny thing, but the new voice telling you it can do a lot. There's the aspects of, the right information at the right time. If you don't want to learn anything you can't learn, all that kind of stuff there. How do you take all of those different variables, James, and kind of concoct it into how you approach those kind of things? Because there's a point where if I go and you're not listening, I can't just go, all right, well, someone else will teach James one day. Like that's not a very good thing for me to do as a leader in that situation. So what do you make of all those different variables there?
Yeah, I've actually questioned myself on that, especially recently, because it feels like sometimes I'm just repeating myself, and I'm going to beat my head against the wall, right? But if they're not ready to receive it, they're not going to. And it could be because they're like I told myself stories about how I can't do something. Everybody has, to some extent, limiting beliefs. And so that can come up from a number of different things. It's either an experience you had in the past or you heard somebody else have an experience. So if I'm telling them something because of a limiting belief, they're telling themselves, oh, that's not going to work for me. So then they don't implement it. Mm-hmm. Right. And so I have to just keep in my mind that they may not be ready for this information today, but I still need to keep giving it to them over and over again, because there will be a point where they are ready. Mm-hmm. And so I have to keep doing that. I don't ever give up on anybody. But I have told people, I said, look, I can't want this more than you do. Mm-hmm. I can't. It's your business. I can't want it more than you do. So either we need to start implementing and finding out what's getting in the way, or you need to tell me what is your hesitation for doing this. And usually that's when those limiting beliefs or a terror barrier will pop up that is literally freezing them from being able to do it. And that's where I have to get into the mindset with them on, okay, let's examine that terror barrier. I'll tell you, I represented over 60,000 clients in St. Louis in bankruptcy. And even in my 20th year, if I had to go to court, I was terrified. I was terrified because I thought my colleagues would laugh at me when I got up there and argued. Right. And I literally, when I got to the federal court, I'd have to go into the bathroom and vomit. And I had to step back and say, is there any truth to this? Right. And what I found out most of the time is it's an illusion. It's a story I'm telling myself. And I asked, I'm like, when's the last time I've ever lost an argument? And I couldn't even remember when. And so that allowed me to push through the terror barrier. And that's what happens. We tell ourselves these stories and this barrier pops up and it's like, oh my gosh, I can't do that because of this story we tell ourselves. So I always tell people, look, step back and ask yourself, is this based in fact or is it based in illusion? Mm-hmm. Right? And most of the time you're going to find it's an illusion, and then you got to push forward. And so when I'm dealing with individuals, I can't say that there's any one cookie cutter approach, Camden. It's a lot in what's happened to this individual and the stories they've heard and the experiences they've had. And it's my job to figure out what that is to get them just to take one step. I got it on my wall right here. It says, you're standing in a pile of shit. Nobody's coming to save you. Right? You have to take a step out. So what are you going to do? So I literally will use that with some people to get them to move forward. And so there's not necessarily a cookie cutter approach I'll take, but all these experiences that I've had have led to my ability to be able to have those conversations with people. I've told business owners before, I'm like, look, guys, I've made more mistakes in business than you've even thought of. Right. And so when you have something you've never experienced before, run it by me first. because I guarantee you 99% of the time I'm going to have already been through it. So that's kind of the best way I have found to get people. When I can relate stories to them, then they're like, oh, you see their wheels turning, and they can see themselves in that, and then they can find the power within to move forward.
Could you share, in jumping back a little bit in your own experience, share what was the catalyst, or maybe what was it like when you said, all right, done completely with law, I want to move just into helping people with their businesses? Because your law practice, you were doing that too. Bankruptcy law, right?
Yeah, we had, my first office was in St. Louis, and then we opened an office in Detroit, then Kansas City, and then Miami. And it was an $8 million a year business.
That's tough to walk away from.
It was. I didn't have any partners, and my kids weren't interested in law school. And I'm like, you know what? I just don't want to actively be involved in this past the age of 50. And I think the biggest reason why, I'm never going to tell anybody that there will be a day out there where you're in heaven and there's no problems in your business. That's never going to happen. Right? I always say, look, new level, new devil. But when you get to a certain point, marketing's no longer hard. You have a system that's driving in, right? Every day leads. Your sales is doing great. Your people are great, but there's always drama in the business of some kind, and that got old for me. And so it's like, let me help others get out of that struggle and build a business that serves them. So I knew that I don't want to be in the active practice of law past the age of 50. And so I decided 49 is when I sold the firm and jumped full-time into consulting with business owners. And since then, it was kind of hit and miss the first few years, but 2018, I really kind of dedicated full-time efforts to it. And I've worked with over 450 business owners since then.
What do you think is the difference for you between dealing with your own drama, which is why you didn't want to be in the business, versus someone else's drama? Because I think that's really you're trading yours for someone else's, going into their business problems, dealing with their drama. What do you think the difference is there of why you're more comfortable with that? Because I think that's an interesting distinction there.
I think it's a really great question, and I don't know that I have an answer, but let me try. I think there's different pressure. There's pressure if I'm the owner of the business that, like in my St. Louis office, I had 24 employees. So there was constant pressure that I have 24 kids that I'm supporting and their families, right? And if I make a decision one way or the other, it's going to affect them. When I'm working with another business owner, I don't have that same pressure. I do have the pressure with them to help them come to a decision that's best for their business based on the experiences I have. But there's not that same pressure as if I owned their business. But I do have multiple businesses where I probably care more about their business than they do. And that's tough. I tell my wife and my daughter, there's days at the end of the day at 5:00 when I get done with Zoom calls and they're like, what would you like to do for dinner? I'm like, I don't want to make another decision today. I'm all decisioned out.
Yep.
And it's just a different perspective to keep track of everybody's firm and what their issue is. Some of it's marketing, some of it's sales, some of it's people, some of it's their systems. They don't have any, and as long as I keep in my mind the 7 parts of a business and working on it with them and they make progress in that area, the rest of the things will fall apart. And I don't step into their shoes as the owner. Mm-hmm. I'm just standing beside you and I'm helping you with making those decisions.
Yeah, I'm right there with you with the, it's funny. When you step into that meeting with that client, they expect you to remember everything that you've talked to them about.
They do.
And it's like, review your notes and hope that you wrote down the right things, sort of stuff. And every once in a while, it's like, yeah, I don't remember what.
Every once in a while.
Yeah.
Yep. That happens.
It does, because we're human. I mean,
yeah.
And I think that's honestly, I was also going to say to me, that's a funny example, because bringing in a consultant or a coach or somebody, you expect them to be on top of all that kind of stuff. But it's a really great example of just like recognizing that not everyone's going to have the same amount of knowledge as you, the same memory, and like those kind of things. Because that's a big thing as a leader, is you have that knowledge bias where it's like, look, I know all these different things, so James must know these things, and Otis must know these things, and I explained it perfectly because I understand it. Therefore, you should understand it. And it's like, you got to recognize that people aren't on the same wavelength. Not everyone is, especially if you're the owner. It's like, not everyone's thinking about this at 10 o'clock at night. Not everyone's waking up at 3 a.m. with ideas. Some of us go home and we clock out. And it's like, you have to be able to understand that to be able to match them with the communication style that you need for it. And that actually brings me to something that I would love to ask you, James, because I think it's always interesting, with lawyers, is the communication side of that, and trying how your background in law influences your ability to communicate well with your team, kind of win people over, get them on your side, all those kind of things that, go back to your legal background.
Yeah, I mean, I think it gives me a different perspective. I mean, one of the things about getting a law degree is they do teach you to think differently, more analytically, more, okay, what could happen if we do A, what could happen? And then you're thinking about the different possibilities. So you'll have different plans for different contingencies. So taking that into operating a business, you become very proactive, right? You're developing plans. You have your main plan, but then you have a backup in case something doesn't happen the way you need to. You have redundancies built into the business that I don't see with a lot of business owners that haven't gone through that same technical type of training. They're just more reactionary. And a lot of times they're so reactionary that they wait way too long. They're not recognizing the early indicators that things are going in a wrong direction, and then it gets out of hand. And then all of a sudden they're in a cash crunch and they can't make payroll and, that kind of thing. But I think that's one of the things, if I lean on how did law school help me, it was in thinking of all the contingencies that could happen and having a different plan for any of those possibilities.
Yeah, that's the by the way, that's the Green Beret way too. We call it PACE. Here's your new acronym. It's primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency.
Okay.
And we used to joke that PACE weighs an awful lot in your rucksack. In a much different environment of carrying it in, as opposed to thinking about it or writing about it and talking about it. That's I think a great lesson for all businesses, and I talk about it a lot, and I think about it a lot in that weighing the risk and weighing the contingencies. How do you help your clients get to that risk understanding, risk acceptance, risk avoidance, those sort of things? What can you share some thoughts and lessons on that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is when they don't really understand what they're getting into, they tend to just throw money at it and see what sticks, right? And to me, that's gambling. That's gambling with your dollars. So I'm constantly talking to them about, okay, as we're considering this, how can we tilt the odds in our favor before we invest money into this? And how can we invest money into it on a small scale to test out our hypothesis to see if it's going to go in the direction we want? And then if it doesn't, what can we adjust to get it to the numbers and the data that we want to see before we roll out a big budget on it? And that's usually how I approach them with anything that they're trying to do that's new. A lot of business owners hope for a done for you. I don't want anything to do with this. I will just pay you tens of thousands of dollars.
Tell me when you're done, right?
Yeah. And then they end up, and it doesn't work out, so then they're like, I just spent $20,000 and I didn't get anything and nothing happened. I'm like, well, let's walk back through how that happened and what could we have done differently.
Where do you think or how much of that do you think plays into the need to struggle a bit, the need to spin your tires on a project in order to kind of really understand what's going on before you hand it off to somebody, before you outsource it, pay some, even going back to, I was talking about fixing dryers and those kind of things earlier. You might want to tinker with the dryer a little bit before you call someone in so you can make sure they're not charging you for some bullshit, right? There's a value there. Because you talk some about your perspective of do you need to spin your tires on those kind of things?
I think you do. I think it's a really great question. It's a really good point. I've always taken the approach that everything new in my business, I'm going to do first. I want to understand it. I want to know, right now we launched a new LinkedIn initiative where it's a reach out initiative. And it's an automation, and people are responding and they're booking discovery calls with me. And so we have a discovery call script for this, and it's starting a new advisory group, a mastermind group. And so I'm doing these sales calls right now just so that I can understand how these conversations are going to go, and do I need to adjust the script? And after I've done them for a few weeks, then I will start training somebody to take over for me. Part of the reason I do that is, number one, I need to have that understanding of how it's supposed to work so that somebody can't pull the wool over my eyes.
Right.
Right? Because if I have no clue how something works and they give me a story about, oh, well, we're not productive because that's just how it goes. Bullshit. I've done it. Right? Oh, it takes me 2 hours to do that. Bullshit, because it only takes me 30 minutes and I don't do them very often. Right? I used to do that in my law firm where I would have people that prepared my bankruptcy petitions. I knew it took about 35 minutes to do one. And that was just from me going in and doing them. And I don't do them every day. And these guys are doing them every day. And I had one person that was like, it takes me 2.5 hours to do one. I'm like, you're full of crap. If it's taking you 2.5 hours, let's talk about why.
Yeah.
Right now, that was a whole nother story because I uncovered a problem in my system. When I dove into that, it wasn't that person being inefficient or slow. It was a problem in my system that I had to fix. But if I wouldn't have understood how it was supposed to work, I could never have that conversation with them. And at the end of the day, the other reason that I want to know how everything works is, at the end of the day, I will be the last one standing if it ever does go in that direction. And let's say everybody quits, right? I can't sit there and go, I don't know what to do, right? It's my business. I have to know. So those are the reasons why I think that there's a difference between delegating your responsibility and abdicating it, right? Delegating means I understand how it works, and then I'm going to have somebody else to do it, and then I'm going to have KPIs in place and checks and balances so I can make sure that what's happening in my business is actually happening, right? That's delegation. Abdicating my responsibility is taking something on and just giving it to somebody and not knowing whether they did it or not. I literally just had to have this conversation with my wife. The weeds in the backyard are killing me, right? I got 5 acres here and I'm out there cutting the grass, and there's weeds in the berm and around the swimming pool. And my grandkids, that's their chore, is to pull the weeds. And she said, well, I told them to go do it. I'm like, so you abdicated your responsibility. Right? She's in charge of all that stuff and the household stuff. You saw them go out there and do it, but did you go check to see if they actually did it or not? No. Well, then you abdicated your responsibility, right? So I had to have, and she's like, Yes, sir. But that's the difference, right? If I don't understand how something works, then I'm just abdicating my responsibility.
Yeah, that's so true, and I think that goes back to the leadership style of leading from the front, right? I mean, it's a fundamental thing, but it's also a demonstration of that. And even when you think about the Army rank system, that guy that is in charge, that 2-star general that's in charge of 10,000 troops in a division, you know what? He started off
Yeah.
all the way down at the bottom and learned his way all the way up. And I think that's an important thing for business leaders to remember that,
Yeah.
just because you got CEO on your business card, you got
Well,
to do some of the walking yourself, right?
there was a couple of times in my law firm where, let's say, my receptionist, she didn't show up and we were shorthanded, so we didn't have a backup. I went and sat in that chair. And I ran the front desk, and I went, and part of her duties was cleaning up the break room, and I did that, and everybody jazzed me for it. Look, man, the owner of the business working as a receptionist. But it also taught them that it's not beneath me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here to have your back, no different than you have mine. So I will step in and do anything I ask you guys to do. And so I think that goes a long way in building that leadership. And when I think of leadership, it's really developing others' people ability to follow you. Mm-hmm. Right? I can be a dictator and they hate my guts. And that doesn't make me a leader.
Right.
So when they see me do those kinds of things, or when I give them something new to do, or we're going to change a procedure, one of the things I always did was sit down with them and say, hey, Camden, up until this point, we've been doing it this way. But there's a problem that keeps coming up that I need to solve. So what I want to do is try to change this so that we can avoid that problem. And if you can give me 30, 60 days doing it this new way, and then we'll get back together and talk about the results and tweak it if we need to, but letting them understand why I'm changing something instead of just going, change it, Camden. Why? Don't ask me that. Just do what I tell you to do, right? I'm not that kind of person. I want them, when I can give them the reason why we're doing something, they take ownership in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And the more they can take ownership in it and feel like they're valued, the more they will follow you off the edge of the cliff.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's building that trust, which is such an important aspect of being a great leader. And the other part of that, being a great leader is always learning more and continuing to grow. And for me, what I learned today is the terror barrier. I hadn't heard that term. I talk about.
You were a terror barrier for 25 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm so glad you said that. Sorry, I had that joke loaded when James said that earlier, and I'm so glad it came back around.
Yeah, but excuse me. I just like the idea of it, because I've used the term gremlin for years, and that gremlin sitting on your shoulder whispering the terrible things in your head. And the terror barrier is quite literally that physical obstruction that is in your mind that keeps you from going. So, yeah.
And that's the part of your brain that's trying to keep you safe and comfortable, right? Oh, yeah. My wife just got back from New York, and they decided to go up on the top of a 100-story building and lean off the side of it, right? And she's like tears coming down, and she said, I know I wasn't going to die. It's not like it's going to break and I'm going to fall, but that's that terror barrier kicking in because your brain's trying to keep you safe and comfortable, and so that happens every day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Cam, how about you? What'd you learn?
For me, it was when we were talking about having your team take that sense of problem solving where it's like they're coming to you with the solutions, that we've talked about before, like come to me with 3 solutions, that kind of thing. Made me think back to someone I worked with, David, with Cobra Valley Indoor Farms, and his ability, and this is one of those small little leadership nuggets I took from him and I try to use all the time, of like just pulling those things out of people. James comes in of, hey, Cam, I'm thinking, tell me, what is it? Like, and it's this genuine excitement of like, what is your idea? Oh, you always have good ideas, James. Tell me it. What is it? And it's this genuine excitement towards it. And when you do that as a leader, you get people that then have these great, exciting ideas and they're excited to come talk to you. It's no longer a confrontation. It's no longer you cracking the whip on them or anything. It is like, I want to hear your ideas. Bring them to me. And when you encourage people to do that, you get those ideas. You don't have to try to pull them out of people. It's you actually build that culture where people are going to share those ideas. And it goes back to that just simple thing of somebody starts and you see they're hesitant, you go, tell me, what is it? And if you show that genuine excitement, they'll match you with it.
Awesome. James, how about you, man? What'd you learn?
I think the biggest thing that I learned was, the question that Cam asked today about how did my legal background help me in my leadership ability or running the business, right? And it dawned on me that it's the change in how I was trained to think analytically and have contingencies. And you talked about it in PACE. And so I've never thought about that and really digging into business owners and what their background is to see how that shapes why they're making certain decisions and doing things in their business. And that's something that I'm going to put more into these conversations that I have with people.
Awesome. James, share with us how folks can find you, follow you, learn more about the Business Accelerator, I said it right, Business Accelerator. Yep. Come on, tongue. There we go.
Institute. There you go.
Institute. Boy.
Yeah, the easiest way is just go to our website. It's businessaccelerator.institute. And then we built out a landing page just for your listeners. It's /CO for Camden Otis. So businessaccelerator.institute /CO.
Awesome. Love that. And we appreciate that. James, it's been a pleasure having you on the show today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, guys.
Camden, run us out.
All right. Thank y'all for listening to today's episode of 10X Your Team with Cam and Otis. And a special thanks to our guest, James R. Brown, for joining us today. Remember, you can watch full episodes of the show on YouTube at 10X Your Team. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to pass it along to other lifelong learners in your tribe so they can enjoy it too. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. As always, the full archive of episodes available at www.10xyourteam.net. Thanks again. We'll see y'all next time.